If you've ever wondered whether you're a hobbyist or a careerist, we're going to have a discussion about that. Now, Mike, you are, I think, a unique breed.
From the moment I picked up a guitar when I was 12 or 13, I knew that that was going to be the path that I was going to pursue as a career. Nothing else was going to stand in my way. I saw my life 10, 15, 20, 25 years ahead.
You visualized it.
Completely visualized it. Did a lot of things that I did not even visualize that took me on a different path, which I'm very thankful for. But I think in the past, I never saw this being a potential career, like the career that I'm in now, which is obviously writing music for TV and film. I didn't see that as a path, but I knew that music was going to be my life. I knew that I was not going to be a computer programmer for some company doing internet security systems or something like that.
Most teenagers are just wanting to be rock stars. They're not thinking about a career, like as a career, as a business.
Yeah.
But you thought of me, like I remember being a kid, not knowing that the artists didn't write their songs. I didn't know that. I didn't start writing songs till I was 14, 15. And that's when I realized, oh, wait a minute, look at these liner notes and see there's different writers writing for these artists. I didn't know that. I was a fan. I was a hobbyist. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be signed to a label deal. I had the big dreams and the vision of it. I know I wanted to do music. I never viewed it as a business, and I never saw like that direct path. All along, and I majored in TV production. It's like the path that I ended up on was there all along for me. Yeah. It just wasn't defined.
So you didn't know that existed back as a teenager?
No, there were no.
MTV didn't promote it as a career path
for you. There were no career paths. There wasn't even like a title music supervisor in the 90s. I never heard of a licensing agent. So I was just gigging and being a hobbyist until things changed in 2005. And I got my first license. And I made a lot of money from that license. I thought, oh my gosh, this is a career. This was in 2005. There's still, at that time, were no courses in music supervision. This isn't that long ago. So all the courses now that exist in supervision and licensing, they did not exist.
That stuff didn't even exist 12 years ago.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's still new.
It is very new. And one of the questions that we get asked a lot is really about the future of licensing and the possibilities. And the reality is that this is still a very young industry. I'm granted I've been doing it for roughly 20 years. You're just a couple years shy of me. This is still a very, very young industry. Yeah. And the growth that we've experienced since I got in has been tremendous. I would never even think to ask, is there still potential? Because I look at the other outlets like Spotify, building your fan base, and all these other things that we all did, pursuing our rock star dreams. Yeah. I look at that now and I have a hard time seeing the path. But I look at licensing and I'm like, it's such a clear path. And it's growing, and it's getting big. I mean, year after year after year, we've not seen a decline at all. Yeah. And it's important to keep in mind when you're licensing your songs, you're working in TV and film and video games and commercials and film trailers, and not the music industry.
But even during like COVID, even during strikes, licensing still happens. There's still a lot of licenses happening. So.
No, and just in the community that Jody and I run, just in the last 3 weeks alone, we posted 2 briefs that were over $300,000. Yeah. And that's during a strike. When you look at like the news articles on your phone over the last number of months, every news article about Hollywood and the strikes makes it look like the sky is falling and the world is ending.
Right. That's news. News will do that.
Commercials are still being made. Video games are still being made. Certain television shows that do not fall under the production contract are still being made. So many things that are still being made, independent films and whatnot. A lot of productions did not stop. So all of those productions need music. And of course, when you marry music to picture, it just becomes even more of a valuable commodity for your brand and for your long-term wealth generation that you're going to hand down to your family. When it comes to the hobby aspect versus the career aspect, music's a great hobby, but to me, I look at musicians who look at it as a hobby, especially the ones who are so good, and I think, man, if you put in like 15% effort.
I know. If you put in 15% of what you're putting towards Spotify, towards getting a stream on Spotify.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe it should be Spotifyists versus careerists, because that seems to be like, if I could only get 1 million streams on Spotify, and let's say you do get 1 million streams, what then? You got to release that next song. Get another 1 million streams. So talking about visualizing that path, I'm trying to think of that path too. Like, what then? Let's say you get signed to a record deal. Let's say that happens. What happens then? If you're signed to Universal, if you're signed to Sony, you are then fighting for them not to drop you. Once you get signed, you think you're going to coast. and be rolling in the cash. It's not like that.
Well, I think what's really interesting to keep in mind when you are signed to the labels, and we see this with individuals that we know who are signed to labels, they say like that's when the work starts. But keep in mind, that's actually now when you're under contract with a major production company to now become a content creator for them. You do just the opposite. You don't lay back and enjoy the work. Now you're under a contractual obligation to create content, whether it's musical content, whether it's social media content, which is basically promotional content.
You can't even just wake up and go play a show. You've got to do all the other stuff now. And it's changed even from when I was chasing it, from when you were working with people and when you were touring with artists. It just blows my mind. Now, if that's what you want to do, if you hear what we're saying and that's what you want to do, awesome. We're not, I don't know, poo-pooing that or whatever it's called.
Cool. You have to go through that drive. I mean, like, I'm glad I went through that pursuit, because that pursuit allowed me to look at the licensing sphere, which I'm such an advocate for, because that pursuit was such a grind.
And you can support that pursuit with licensing. So that there's no reason not to do both. Both of these situations, we're speaking to the careerists out there. Whether you're a careerist pursuing that record deal or a careerist pursuing licensing or doing both, you're a careerist. But if you're hearing any of this, you're like, I just want to be a weekend warrior and playing bands and stuff. You're a hobbyist, and that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So recognize that's what it is, and recognize that if you are a hobbyist in that capacity, licensing is not something you dip your toes into. If you want to dip your toes into playing guitar, dipping your toes into playing guitar is like learning the basic cowboy chords and being able to play a couple of major and minor chords and up and down the neck, and now you can play any song for the most part that you want to play. You've dipped your toes into playing guitar and reached a certain level that you're happy with. But sync licensing does not have levels. Sync licensing is binary. You either land the placement or you don't. It's either yes or it's no. It's on or it's off. So sync licensing is not something that you dip your toes into.
Right.
You either land the placement or you don't land the placement.
It doesn't have to be a hit song. That's the big difference between the two pursuits. You're trying to get hits to stay on the label to generate that income. For sync licensing, you're watching a scene where two people are having a conversation on a balcony and there's music or jazz or Latin or something playing above. It doesn't have to be a hit song. So it removes that pressure element in a big way. And you still can get paid big bucks for those licenses.
Oh, it's amazing when you factor in the amount of time you spend sometimes producing a song versus the payout.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally tens of thousands of dollars per hour that you're receiving if you spend 3 or 4 hours on a song. This type of song is not going to be a full production song with tons of background vocals and live drums and all that other craziness. This type of song can simply be something where you program some simple drums, you played a bass line, you added some guitars, and you did some yeahs and some oh-oh-ohs as the vocal. Then you mixed it. 3 or 4 hours later, you've got a piece of music that can sit underneath a scene, multiple scenes. Every time that song is licensed, it generates upfront revenue. And then, of course, every time that show airs, it generates back-end royalties. So if you look at something like that, where if you get, say, $20,000 on an upfront license for a piece of music that you spent 4 hours on, you made $5,000 per hour. And I'm talking from experience, from commercials and stuff that I've had that have paid those amounts. That took less than 4 hours. And that's before you start factoring in the royalty from every single time it airs. But it's good when you turn that hobby into a career where you can get up every day and do the thing that you love. So the difference here is hobbyist or careerist. Licensing is the one avenue that we have available to us as independent musicians where we can turn it into a career. But we have to keep in mind that it's not something we dip our toes into. We either go in and we learn all the aspects of licensing, what it's involved, how to serve music supervisors at the highest level, present them with the highest quality music that they can utilize on the productions that they're working on.
It's a mental choice you make. We've been throwing stuff back and forth. If you're this, if you're that, and you're wondering, well, what am I? You got to really think about that. What do you want? Do you want the freedom that licensing provides you? Do you want to be grinding it out towards a record deal? Do you want to do whatever you're doing and then on the weekends play music? Those are decisions you have to make. It's not always an easy decision. We encourage you to think about it, but own it. Own your choice. Make a choice. If you're going to be a hobbyist, own it. If you're going to be a careerist, own it. If you own whatever it is, you're going to find success doing that. You'll find happiness doing that if you own it.
We have a book that we have. There's a link below you can download called How to License Your Music to TV, Film, and Ads. We show you the exact sync licensing process that we've utilized to generate tens of thousands of placements of our songs. And this is a way to give back to you, from musician to musician, what we've learned through our licensing journey. So we definitely encourage you to click the link below and download that book.
If you're interested in getting your songs into your favorite TV shows, films, commercials, trailers, and video games, you're going to want to check out the free guide below.